A struggle to find the right time between yesterday and this morning to go live. So apologies for the sort of toing and froing and all that kind of stuff. But how are we all? Good morning. I can see you all nattering away there. What's happened, Tracy? Sorry to read that, Tracy. Sorry, sometimes we crash in on a... I didn't think people were getting pinged anymore now that restrictions had been dropped. Yeah, I didn't necessarily think that either. Hey, who's forgotten about COVID, what with all the Ukraine? Can you forget about COVID? Is COVID forgettable? Not really. But I mean, I tell you what, nothing like the threat of World War III to kind of nudge it into the long grass. Morning, Tracy Lynham, Hazel Malbon, Zoe Griffiths-Brown, Natalie Broadbent. Morning all on this damp, wet Wednesday. Oh, bless you. I'm afraid you've only got Mark this morning. Nadia will be back tomorrow. And I had to pull this earlier only because I've got to have a Zoom meeting about something very exciting that we're filming for the channel. So, yeah, we'll tell you more. Well, we won't tell you more. We'll tell you when it's done. Natasha Tiramos, we don't hear about COVID anymore. I've literally gone through every single news gathering website and probably the top, understandably, the top 20 stories. Hi, Paul Rudd. The top 20 stories are... understandably pivoting all around Ukraine. And it feels kind of wrong, doesn't it, at the moment? On the one hand, it feels that there's only so much one can say, or there's only the same things to be said, but then at the same time, it feels kind of awful to move off topic. But I did want to just sort of touch base, and thank you, Carl Mitchell, I'm good. Just recovering from COVID, Sarah Fox, and not forgotten, absolutely. What do you guys think, Faith Goodman, about Hancock saying falling in love made it exempt from the rules of social distancing? Well, as you say, wasn't everyone else in love? Therefore, the rest of the UK didn't love their relatives enough to break the rules. Very good. Simply put, Faith, I can't add any more to that. Who's that? Creatorholic, oh, morning, lucky I spotted you. No notification this morning. That's frustrating, isn't it? Remember, hit the bell for notifications and hit... you get a choice to click always. If you don't get a notification and you're thinking, well, I know they're going live at some point this morning. I know the times always change. They just have to. It's life, all that kind of stuff. You'll see the circle of the channel with a little, I think, blue or red dot will tell you that something's coming up. It's just another way of kind of, you can check that. You can check that. Elaine Ginolfi or Ginolfi, you got notified. Good, I'm pleased. Melanie Williams, God, that's cringe. What's cringe? Tell us, Melanie Williams, what's cringe? Oh, I see, Matt Hancock. Natasha Tiramos, it's almost funny how we thought COVID was bad and now we've had the threat of a world war looming, although I'm trying to stay hopeful. It's funny, yeah, as Nadia's sister Dina, we had Betty and Teddy unexpectedly and suddenly, which was nice, but it kind of played havoc with our wine o'clock, I'm afraid, last night. But as Dina left, she said, oh, the halcyon days of lockdown. I know what you mean. It's kind of like, who thought there could be a bigger threat than a worldwide pandemic? Faye, Cafe B. Hey, who thought that? And the only thing that could possibly trump a pandemic is the spectre of World War III. As we've said many times, though, I genuinely believe that World War III is not going to happen. Who saw... Now, you're going to find this unbelievable. I'm going to say something positive. Oh, what's that, Emma? Lorraine called Matt Hancock the pound shop milk tray man this morning. That's a good description. Who saw the incredibly impassioned appeal to Boris Johnson at the press conference in, I believe, Warsaw in Poland? Did anyone see that? It was highly emotional. She was talking from the heart. She was in a state of, you know, understandable distress. Her friends, family, trapped, yes. Anne Murray, Tina Davis, hi Donna Maritza, yeah. Now, it was interesting because some people will have read Boris's response as potentially unsympathetic. And Christ Almighty, you only have to go through coffee moaning for us to know how much we've talked about the man's lack of warmth. She was amazing. She was amazing. But I have to say, Boris had to say what he had to say. And I think that was a very difficult thing to do in the face of, Biden wouldn't allow himself to be in front of an impassioned Ukrainian because he controls, his State of the Union address, he controls the media that comes in. It'll always, people will suggest it one step removed. But to be faced with someone whose feelings were totally raw and real, hi Ashley, distressing, I was so relieved and pleased that he absolutely stood his ground in terms of having to say without any ambiguity that there would not be a no-fly zone. Because Jackie Phillips, I was not unsympathetic. I thought he looked moved. Yeah, he was. I mean, it was a deeply difficult situation, and I have to say, I thought he dealt with it. I thought he dealt with it well, calmly, and I think he also got an important message across, because Putin is looking for any chink in NATO's armour. He's looking for any moment where the united rebellion, if you like, the Allied forces, where someone makes a modicum of a mistake to suggest they would go. Because a no-fly zone isn't just, don't fly. It's not like, oh, just don't fly. Just put that down, get your helicopter down. It's not like that. It means that if you implement a no-fly zone, it means that if Russian jets and planes go into that airspace, we then defensively have to shoot them down. And as soon as you shoot them down, you are in a definite war with Putin. So that's why, whilst it sounds brutal, and whilst everyone is clamouring for what more can we do, there are certain red lines that the West, the UN, NATO, America, Britain, what have you, absolutely know they can't overstep. So, that's interesting, Faith. I think Partygate has made Boriss appear very weak to President Putin. It's funny, isn't it, how things so shift? Because say Partygate was to rear its ugly head now, would we really want to lose any leader of our country at such a critical point? Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, it is wonderful timing for Boriss, and we've talked about that, but also the crisis is real. Do you know what I mean? So I think you're right, Faith. I think Partygate has had a lot to play in it. And I think there was a point where people were saying, Putin was observing it in great detail to see if he was brought down. Bobby Ward, it's incredibly difficult. Elaine Janolfi, his own people need to bring him down. Yeah. Creatorholic, I remember the government warnings on TV in the 1970s about what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. I was vlogging the other day and I was talking about precisely that. Do you remember there was footage of like light and fire passing through buildings, and they had sort of dummies, sort of almost, shop window dummies being incinerated. I remember running into the kitchen to my mum and crying just out loud, because I was just like, what is this thing called a nuclear bomb? Blueberry Jam 177 Gaming, NATO must stand together. They cannot show any weakness. No fly zone cannot happen. It can't happen. We can't have troops on the ground. It can't happen. And I say, I don't think the government should be supporting or advocating that anyone goes as freedom fighters either, because my worry is that the Russians will misinterpret. Say the Russians come across an English soldier with a gun, that might get reported back up the line, and it looks like England are on the floor, or Britain, the UK have boots on the ground, as they say. Amma Nail, is this the first time since World War II that two developed countries are at war with each other? Two countries at war, yeah, there's been lots of civil wars. Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say this is the biggest conflict and most threatening conflict. I mean, you can begin to see how, when people said, oh, it could become contagious and it could spread, you can see how that could happen, can't you? What with the Polish border, all you need is perhaps a Russian separatist blowing themselves up in Poland or something like that, and then it could become something's happened on NATO ground. I mean, it's a tinderbox of possibilities. And of course, today, Putin has warned everyone in Kiev to, I always want to call it Kiev, but the Ukrainians prefer Kiev. Yeah, same Sarah Jones. It put the fear of God into me when I heard about freedom fighters. Putin has given such a considerate warning to all the civilians of Kiev to evacuate or leave. He seems absolutely fine to unsettle over almost 4 million. Mandy Nanny, do you think one of his own will turn on him and kill him? Did I say the other day he has all of his advisors and government ministers who meet him have their feces checked for disease? He's totally isolated and paranoid, that's for sure. I was reading a report that suggested they think he's very ill. He could be suffering with, well, they think cancer and Parkinson's, apparently. There's suggestions that his slightly puffy face could be an overuse of steroids. None of which encourages you, because, and here's the really, really frustrating thing is, we think that, you know, around him there might be some people with a level head, but you never know. He might be he might be the calmest in there. That would be fucking awful, wouldn't it? What was that about Threads? I seem to remember Threads. Who was talking about Threads? Where's that gone? I just saw it come up there, and it hasn't come up here. Was Threads a series in the 70s? I think it was, wasn't it? Oh, here we go. Kim Lakides. I was made to watch a film called Threads when I was at school. It was about a nuclear bomb, and it was terrifying. Yeah. Heather Draper, Putin must realise he made a massive mistake, but he's too proud and stubborn to give up now. Just hope his own... Well, this is what we were saying the other day. The title, What Can Be Done About Ukraine? Like a naughty child, the West have to give him a way out. Now, the biggest development that I think is really encouraging, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is that China could be offering themselves up as conciliators, mediators, and potential peace treaty finders. Who'd have thunk that? Who'd have thunk that? Just gonna have a sip of coffee. What do you think of that? Could China ride to the rescue? Do you think China will ride to the rescue? My other worry slightly is if the more isolated and cornered he becomes, the more, it's like Ben Wallace, the defense minister, said today, with their inability to take on Kiev, and overrun Ukraine, he'll just resort to more drastic and barbaric means. Cat Curry, they'll want Taiwan in return. Don't go there. That's a massive problem with America, I know. I think Putin was expecting China, Tracy Lynham, to fall on his side. Faith Goodman, I entirely agree. This is an unpleasant thing to say, but they must allow him, the Allied forces must allow him to back down with some kind of dignity, otherwise he is a cornered rat. And God only knows what he'll do. It's true. I mean, in many regards, the damage is already done with the Russian economy. You know, it's like if he stopped tomorrow and said, okay, right, we're going to pause here. We want that bit of Ukraine. He's got to be seen to be a victor. Otherwise, his position will be in danger in Russia. He has to be successful. So we have to work out what's the minimal level of success that he'll accept. And I do think, this is a terrible thing to say, I do think that one of those will be not allowing Ukraine to become a member of NATO, but giving them absolute sort of a treaty of an agreement, a treaty between the West, Russia and Ukraine, that they will be protected, you know, in some other way, that NATO, they're a sort of almost like a non-official member of NATO. Natasha Tiramos, if Putin hated us before, he hates us a lot more now. This is it, you see. How do you let him feel he's won, without him winning in such a way that Ukraine falls, and in such a way that he feels he can sell it to the Russian people? Because although we're seeing these protests, something like 70% of the Russian population are supporting it, or believe that there's a validity to it. They're as behind it as so many of the poor innocent, and there are innocent Russian soldiers who weren't aware of what they were going into the Ukraine to do. There was that, did anyone see that tragic text message, thread between a Russian soldier and his mother? It must have been picked up by a Ukrainian soldier, because the Russian soldier died, saying, I can't believe it, Mum, what are we doing? Essentially, we're shooting our own. I didn't realise we were sent to shoot or kill our fellow brothers. You know, a lot of these Russian soldiers are giving up as well. I mean, I know some of that will be propaganda from Ukraine, the fog of war. You can't, there's a lot of propaganda on both sides serving different ends. Tracy Lynham, do you think Ukraine will get to a surrender point to save lives? I personally think what's going to have to happen, and what will happen, is that the two regions with the Russian separatists will go to Russia, and the West will try and insist on a really strict agreement for the rest of Ukraine to preserve its integrity, but it will fall short of them becoming NATO members. Melanie Williams, you talk like NATO is some offensive bloc. It's a defensive pact. Russia has been encroaching on and killing Ukrainians for 8 years now. No, I entirely agree. NATO is a defensive pact, but if any Russian boots step onto any NATO soil, they will then be, Article 5 is triggered and they go into defense mode. But of course, defense in war is shooting shit. And as soon as you shoot a Russian soldier, or as soon as you shoot a Russian jet, it's Armageddon. It will be Armageddon. And interestingly, the psychology that people have shared about Putin is, in Russia, the army don't view nuclear as like this separate concept to, you've got war machines, you've got all this stuff. Oh, and then there's the nuclear option. They very much see nuclear as part of it. They can, they talk about nuclear. It might be that they're considering a localized nuclear attack on Ukraine. You don't know. You don't know. Good Trip Lollipop, Ukraine is a toy that Putin can't play with, so he's going to break it so no one can play with it. Despite saying all that, really, what I'm trying to say is that this sense of the West only doing so much is important. Because it's either, either we support Ukraine. I think the way to do it is you support Ukraine. We are supporting them with with weaponry, defensive weaponry. That runs the risk of making Putin irate. When Putin said, "You'll know hell like you know no other," was he referring to just boots on the ground, or was he referring to weapons then? Aaron Bullimore, Russia has been an absolute mess since the assassination of their entire royal family, and then things were bad. Russia's history is fascinating, but all I learned is just one tragedy after another. Entirely agree. Ashley, what an incredible man the Ukraine president is, from actor to president to fighting for his country. All leaders should look up. And he was wasn't he a dancer on Strictly? Ukraine Strictly. Jackie Bellino, we are already at war with Russia. Yeah, well, yeah. Melanie Williams, those Russian separatists are Russians, not Ukrainians. That would be like allowing Hitler to invade and take over Czechoslovakia because it had some ethnic Germans in it. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what point you're making there. I agree. Are you suggesting that because they're Russians that Russia should protect them? I'm not too sure what you're saying. One of the has anyone seen the awful, tragic racism that's occurring in the evacuation and at the borders because of a sort of cultural intolerance or misunderstanding of any ethnic difference? It's tragic. Moroccans, Middle Eastern, African, anyone, any black sort of evacuees, they're being pushed to the back of the line. It's just, yeah, Tracy Lynham, the racism we're seeing at the borders is disgusting too. The fact they actually have time for it. Louise Jones, would Putin be mad enough to use nuclear because we would use it back? Definitely America and the UK. So what would he gain? But probably his own death and the world death. If he's, yes, I think he could, and I think he would if we were to put boots on the ground. I do. I genuinely do. It's a considered part of his weaponry. It's like as every day as firing a missile. Okay, who here? In the part when I was a student, I was like, CND, nuclear threat, reduce nuclear weapons, and I think that was Reese. Sorry, let me just see. The UN has now admitted that Ukrainian refugees are facing racism at the border. It's nonsense that it has to get an official stamp of approval to express its existence, despite countless footage. And also the UN is just like a bust flush, isn't it? It takes 8 weeks to kind of sign off, a resolution. There you go, I'll remember the word. The racism is horrendous, as if things are already bad. Yeah, so it's just awful. It's just awful. So, there are so many different aspects to something that seems so simple, So yeah, no. So what I was saying was, read the CND thing, and we all wanted nuclear disarmament. You know, in an ideal world, we would all like everyone to not have nuclear weapons. But I hate to say it, not to use the nuclear deterrent, but to have a nuclear deterrent. If we didn't, who, you know, where do we think we'd be with Putin? I mean, surely the nuclear deterrent stops him at some point. Probably stops him around Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. Kirsty Jane, I'm terrified about the nuke, not going to lie, because we've done nothing wrong and he's taking it out on the wrong people. Ukraine are innocent. Yeah, I agree. Jackie Vellino, Putin is supposed to be a religious man. Wow. Yeah, true. Gabrielle, why aren't other world leaders helping the Ukrainians? We need to unite against Putin. Well, I think the West are trying to do as much as we can with economic sanctions and military, defensive military on the ground. Sarah Clift, I live next to a firing range in Wales where there's definitely a step up in fire practice. Sandra Lupson, I think Putin is on drugs. Where did your phrase go? Yeah, there was talk that Hitler was on opioids. Yes. There we go, Sandra Lupson was hooked on, was hooked on amphetamines. Yeah. I mean, I think the nervous thing in the West is how unhinged is he? Did you know that the head of the American military and the British military, they have, like, in their phone, they have, like, the mobile phone number of the head of the Russian military. So, in the dark of night, when I'm thinking, oh, God, what's going to happen here? I do sometimes hope that they, and believe it or not, they have each other's phone lines so that they can coordinate military maneuvers around the world. So they were in touch with each other a lot in Syria. You know, they would liaise about what planes were, you know, and Russia would give notice that they were sending planes in and all this kind of stuff. These weird rules of law. Isn't it weird that for something so barbaric, you have these rules of law, like a game of cricket? But what I'm trying to say is perhaps the heads of each military are going, fucking hell, mate, this fucking dude is an absolute nut job. Don't worry, you know, the Russians obviously wouldn't talk with a kind of London, but the Russians would be like, do not worry, we will not be pressing the button, this is a terrible idea. You know, you just hope that perhaps the head of the military are just on the blower going, Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, it's not as if, what I'm trying to say is there are many buffer zones before it's particularly catastrophic. And also we'd hear that America's gone to DEFCON 3, and I think it goes up to DEFCON 1. Does anyone know what DEFCON stands for? Is it Defense Contingency? I don't know. But if you hear America goes to DEFCON 3, then you know the shit's about to hit the fan. Heather Draper, apparently Ukrainian forces thwarted an assassination plot against President from a tip-off from members of Russia's security services. Wow, is that, where have you found that story? That's remarkable. That does suggest that they're a tip-off from Russia's security service. Did anyone see that the president of Belarus sort of stood with a map and basically told the whole world what was going to happen? With a stick. You know, one of those sticks that were always held really low and they point at the... I'm going to say it loud, say it proud. He's a bit of a twat, isn't he? Kharkiv University hit by strike. Yeah, defence ready condition, DEFCON. Defence ready condition. Thank you, Melanie Williams. Oh, guys. Do you think we should be taking in more than 100,000 refugees? I think Priti Patel's argument was we're geographically further, which doesn't explain why Ireland are taking more than us. What do you think? Do you think we should take them in? Do you think her argument is correct about checking everyone to make sure there aren't, you know, potential terrorists? Thank you, DDF. Dixon Summit, it's the desperation and blind fear on the faces of the women and children and all the poor animals caught up in this. I know. Anne Henderson, yes, that's right, that's what I was saying, Anne. Many people think Putin's puffy face is caused by steroids since COVID. People have to quarantine for 2 weeks before they see him because he may be immunosuppressive. And, as I was saying, part of that is checking their poo. Imagine that. Mr. Putin, I need to come in and talk about the military procedures. Can you go and take a shit, please, and examine it, and then come back in 2 weeks? It's the most bizarre thing. Someone says there that Putin might take his own life. Who said that? Tracy Lynham, can we have 5? You know what? I went looking for 5 minutes of happy news, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything, and it worried me, because I didn't want to just sit here and blither on about, you know, something that we have virtually no control over. And as I went through all of the news, as I go through every single story, there is no good news. Literally, you know, yeah, nothing. No. You know, there's Fashion Week happening somewhere. If only one could just be focused on fashion. We're thinking of doing a Confessions of a Modern Parent about how do you manage children's anxiety, because it's definitely having an impact on the youngsters. You know, Snapchat, you know, they get their news on Snapchat. It's digested, but they get this snappy, literally, news on their Snapchat, and it's petrifying. Erin Bullimore, the Tories have been very good at pushing the idea that we don't have any more room for refugees. It's utter bullshit. I can tell you from the experience there is plenty of room, but the Tories won't fund it. I saw someone suggesting that they allow the refugees to come over and they house them in the oligarchs' houses. Sharalu and TikTok, which is interesting because TikTok is a Chinese-held company, isn't it? Confessions is coming back. We're gonna structure it more like a little series, a little season. Oh, Sandra Lupson, a friend of mine, suggested inviting Putin to join NATO. Peace is the most important thing. I agree. That would be a bit counterintuitive. Imagine that. Biden, Sleepy Joe. Come on, Putin. Join us. Jackie Valino. Unfortunately, there's no good news. How can we be happy with all this happening to fellow humans? Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean, you know, I posted something about being able to sleep one night and someone said, oh yeah, this is important. It doesn't mean you can't be focused on things in your day-to-day life. Of course, we have to carry on. But, you know, there is just this shadow, isn't there? There's this shadow. Anthony Cotton, do you think Putin will give up as it took longer than he thought? No, I think he'll get harder and stronger. Beryl McNally, you're a Middlesbrough supporter. Boo, boo. Yeah, no, I don't think he will. I think he'll just get tougher, and I think it will be I just think he'll go in even heavily. I mean, the talk is that 40-mile convoy is going to surround Kiev and in good old-fashioned style, besiege it. And apparently the shops in Kiev and other cities are running out of all meat, fish. There's only bread. There's mainly bread. It's huge wheat production, isn't there? Melanie Williams, Ukrainian TikTok is wild at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, watch past vlogs. Watch the most recent vlog of Christmas decks coming down. You know, we do put content on the channel that is totally distracting. The first green-fingered hell is soon to land. Second part of decorations coming down. We've got some movie reviews coming. Natalie's going to be cooking more dishes. We're going to have a how to stay married. We put lots of content on, and we try to maintain, obviously, the daily lives, because we know how, well, it's important to us as we feel that it is important to you guys. Jackie Creamer, my daughter Melissa Wells is expecting her first baby. At these sad times, we all need to look to our own lives to keep going, or we will all have mental breakdowns. Huge congratulations and delightful kind of salutations to Melissa Wells, Jackie Creamer's daughter. I hope you can just indulge in having your baby without all of this nonsense going on around you. Natasha Milchin, people are at each other's throats here for having happy moments, but my God, we have kids. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like you're somehow not on message if you for a moment find a glimmer of joy or a glimpse of joy. So remember, guys, it's important. Don't feel guilty about finding joy in something. You know, there is only so much we can do, and there's only so much we can say. I have to confess, you know, we are with these lives wanting to search for light, entertaining stories, but it feels just at the moment that one can't escape the seriousness and severity of this particular crisis. Yeah, I mean, the awful floods in Australia are barely getting picked up, are they? But I mean, catastrophic floods that are affecting tens of thousands of people in Australia. Jackie Bellino, I'm going to watch Donut Vlog and Curtain Gate, absolutely. Or watch Paint Gate, that only landed a couple of weeks ago. Charlie Mason, congratulations. 1,000 days alcohol-free today, yippee. Reem W, that is a sore topic. Have you found the Robin Christmas ornament with the screw for a nose? No. And I want to know where it is. Julie Tarling, my 17-year-old son says he's had enough of being part of history, what with his GCSE nightmare, COVID, and now this war. Perhaps we should do a live Confessions of a Modern Parent on here and then upload it to the podcast, because I think lots of people, even if it's not your children, it might be your parents, you know, everyone has got someone else that they're trying to comfort or see through this in some way, or even yourself, you know. Perhaps we should do that. Me and Nads will have a chat about it. Mattress Gate, that's another good one, Joe Green, to watch that. And if you go way, way back, you can watch Nanny Di Struggling to Swim. I think Nadia has binned it, Laura S. I think actually she said Dina's got rid of it. I'm devastated. It took great care and attention to get that nose on. Maybe Toffee's put the Robin in the garden, or maybe Toffee's got it in her bed. So look, guys, I've got to crack on. It's really nice to touch base with you. I'm so sorry that the news is so spectacularly grim and worrisome. But once again, my prediction, my personal opinion, is that we will not be going to war, and we have to trust that what seems like inaction from the West isn't. It's all strategic. It's all strategic. And I have to say, full credit to Boris Johnson for dealing with an incredibly complicated, difficult situation yesterday. So there you go. I don't want it said that I don't recognise where he achieves things. So guys, have a lovely, lovely day, and speak to you either later, or there will be a members live this week as well, chance of cards. Oh, and people who for 24 months have been members, a whole batch of cards are going out. We're working alphabetically through the list, and about 35 cards are going out tomorrow. So stay safe, San Diego, and lots of love.